Good morning. It is my pleasure to call to order the Finance and Physical Resources Committee meeting. It is Tuesday, November 16th at 8:30 a.m. I'd like to welcome fellow commissioners, staff, and guests we have today, and anyone watching online. We always appreciate your interest in your local county government. And with that, I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Commissioner Sparks, supported by Commissioner Breivy. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 2 from the Sheriff and Probate Court. Al?
Yes, action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to transfer funding from the Administrator's 2022 General Fund budget to the Sheriff 2022 General Fund budget for an Office Administrator, 2 Clerk 3 positions, 3 Corrections Officers, and 1 Patrol Deputy, and to the Probate Court 2022 General Fund budget for 2 Clerk 3 positions, and to convert 2 part-time Clerk 2 positions to full-time status. The Sheriff is requesting the following additional positions: an Office Administrator, $83,605, and 2 Clerk 3 positions, $134,116 each, to manage and process an increased volume of video-based FOIA requests resulting from the implementation of body cameras. A Corrections Officer, $88,723, and a Patrol Deputy, same cost, to provide staff training in areas such as de-escalation and unconscious bias mitigation. 2 Corrections Officers at $177,446 each to meet increasing demands to provide court security. The Probate Court is requesting to add 2 Clerk 3 positions at $134,116 each and convert 2 part-time Clerk 2 positions to full-time status at a cost of $67,060 to address increasing caseloads as recommended by an analysis by Plant and Moran. It is also requested that $572,613 be transferred to the Sheriff's 2022 General Fund budget and $201,176 to the Probate Court's 2022 General Fund budget from the Administrator's 2022 General Fund budget. These requests are contingent on the approval of these positions by the Legislative and Human Resources Committee and the full board adoption of the 2022 General Appropriation Act.
Okay, before I ask for a motion, is it correct that it's each on those positions? No,
Oh,
it's not each. It's in
oh,
total.
in total, okay.
Yeah, so I
apologize.
just wanted to
Thank
correct
you.
that. So
Nope, good point.
it's not written as each, so as written, it's correct. Is there a motion to approve?
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Breivy, support by Commissioner Womack, and we'll take questions, comments, and discussion. And I believe.
Yes, Chair, if
you'd
I
like
could
to
just
add?
explain why this is coming to Finance before LHR, because that's not our typical process. But it kind of started when position requests were held for my review when I started, so we got off cycle to begin with. And then I took time to meet with various department heads and elected officials and talk through some of those. And then we got to a point right now where we don't want to approve it before the budget's adopted because we'd have to make a whole bunch of changes to the budget. So it makes sense to approve it right after, and then so amend the budget right after it's adopted works procedurally a whole lot better than amending it right before it's adopted. And so that's why it's coming to you this way with the time we have left in the year. It's not typical, not how we plan to do it in the future, but it gets her done.
So will it go to finance, or will it go to legislative?
Yes,
Yes, okay,
It's a little kitty wampus right now.
a little kitty wampus. Yeah,
got it.
That's a big word.
that's a budget term.
But, yeah.
All right, any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a few questions about the correction officer and patrol deputy providing staff training. Wondering how much of this is, going to be, I guess, department-wide trainings where all deputies are attending, or how much of it's going to be individual specific? And lastly, are these going to be positions where we hire from within, or are we going to be seeking external candidates?
We'll have our sheriff address those.
Hi there, how's everybody this morning? So I anticipated this question, surprisingly. So this is a training program that has progressively been added to over the last several years. So this is not a brand-new training program that's now in place. But we did increase the number of hours that we have used to focus on de-escalation specifically, having to do with everything that an officer can have in his tool belt to try to make no force necessary on a incident. So the way we have traditionally done this service is to use part-time staff, and I don't mean part-time employed, but part-time assigned to the training task. And that has become very, very difficult on overtime because of all the other pressures for the sheriff's office right now. So we've had an increase in community violence, which has increased our demand on law enforcement. You also had a request for courts. Well, right now, we're filling court assignments with people who have other full-time tasks, and they're doing it on overtime. We've had an increased demand to have hospital runs in the correctional facility because of the specific population we have in the, so all of this is causing overtime in every direction, and we really don't have the available staff to do these kinds of assignments on a part-time basis. So we made the decision last year to put people into the training unit and then backfill with overtime on the shifts. And now I'm asking to get the supplemental staff to put the assigned person back on the shift. But this is not a brand-new training initiative, if that makes any sense.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah. And it's not the same every year. We transition it as we need to for the specific needs of the staff.
Yes, Commissioner Womack.
Just a quick comment since we have you up here. Just thank you for seeing the importance of prioritizing this program of de-escalation, and just keep up the good work.
Commissioner Bukowski?
Thank you, Chair. You may have partly answered this already, but I don't know if it was last year or the year before. My memory fails me as I approach Commissioner Morgan's age. When we approved the 5 deputies a year or two ago to add to road patrol, I thought you said something like, you know, I'm not going to ask for any more positions anytime soon, and this seems soon, and this seems like 7, if I do math right.
So, I have heard that quote come back from other commissioners, but just a point of clarification, we were specifically talking about our law enforcement staff for road patrol purposes. So, as you noticed, there is nobody on that list specifically for law enforcement staff for road patrol purposes. And the add-on quote to that was until we've had an opportunity to fully evaluate our response times based on the staff that we've put into service. I am happy to report, and if you were part of LHR, you would know that our performance measures related to response times have been exactly where we hoped they would be. We'll continue to monitor, but I'll remind you that there is an explosion of population in Kent County, and we are very much in the people business. So as population and growth out into the townships continues, you likely will at some point receive additional requests for help because there's a correlation between people and needs for our services. I will also tell you that we have some staffing issues in corrections. I think we did talk about that at that point. You will likely see more requests coming up for corrections. We were hopeful that some of the legislation that changed booking patterns would impact us, although I have not seen any of that. In fact, my population is at a very high level right now in the correctional facility, somewhat related to COVID, somewhat related to changing patterns of incarceration, but we're gonna just have to wait and see how that plays out. But these are very specifically for other things, training, courts, which are, you know, we had a build out of courtrooms, plus we had a delay in process, which is now causing a catch-up effect. So we're getting hit in a couple different ways for courts. And then obviously FOIA, when we talked about the video camera or body cam project, we did talk about there going to be a correlating effect on our FOIAs. But it's not just road patrol, there's also many, many, many cameras in the correction facility, audio recordings in the dispatch that we have to go through on every single incident, and that takes time and people. Did I answer your question?
Brings up another quick one
Go ahead.
for the sheriff. So the 2 corrections officers to meet increasing demand to provide court security are, we had numerous long subcommittee or special committee meetings about adding judges. So is this a result of adding judges, or is this added business in the court?
It's both, because the judges aren't there yet, but the business is there now. When a judge in a courtroom is added to your configuration, it causes an increase in simultaneous events. And simultaneous events are one of the triggers for our staffing. There can only be so many places at one time, and to have a courtroom in use, it typically will take 2 deputies to be in the courtroom for security. Now, that's not 24/7, they're not even every day, and a lot of those are dismissed, so we kind of we balance that. We don't have staff to have every courtroom in use all at the same time. We never have had that kind of staff. But even though those judges aren't in place yet, we are seeing the judges that are there more fully booked, trying to get through the backload for COVID. So we do have staffing demands right now. We expect to have this staffing demands forever into the future because of the judges being added. And maybe more, I don't know. I haven't been able to see how our staffing will roll out based on what this looks like in a year and a half, as opposed to when we're working through a crisis.
All right, this one isn't for the sheriff, but it's related to the judges. I don't know if people told you, Al, about those experiences we had of long conversations with the judges about adding a judge or 2, and we added a probate judge, and again, that took a long time. It took a couple, 3 cracks at it before we added a probate judge, but here we're adding at least 3 FTEs, or over 2. Is that part of that, in the sense of because of a new probate judge, or just seems like a lot of clerks being added in that department?
I think from the discussion that I'm aware of, and no, to answer your first question, I wasn't aware of those long discussions. But I do think that a case has been made that the data shows we could use another judge, and that this could be part of meeting that demand as I understand it. So it's not anticipating necessarily that it's a done deal, although I do think we're headed in that direction. And so we won't need to start from scratch with staffing that position, that this will help. I don't think there's a clear line to say there's X number of hours
Right.
that we need today, and then that will obviate a need for that with a new judge. But I do think that these hours can be applied to that new judge when we start.
I mean,
If I could just add something, so especially in the sheriff's office, whether you add a judge and we provide security at the courthouse, or we maintain custody of the people who are awaiting trial, you have staff demands. So it's not an additional cost necessarily, although there's a transition of where those costs are related to the system. If there's a delay in process, it costs more time to manage the entire adjudication. So I think that's something to keep in mind. This is really important for the court to continue that process moving forward as quickly as possible to dispense justice.
Would it be fair to say that this takes care of the number of courtrooms, regardless of who's sitting in the judge's seat?
It
you mean
doesn't necessarily plan on full leverage of every courtroom. It plans for our predicted level of use, because there's always going to be canceled trials. So, but if they all of a sudden added 3 judges, let's say, And now we have a visiting judge taking up shop in one of the courtrooms that we haven't already anticipated. No, I would come back and ask you for more staff. I don't have staff sitting in the courtrooms waiting for processes, but I have staff waiting for the predicted level of processes with these two additional, augmented sometimes by overtime. It's still not a perfect system because I can't plan on what it's gonna look like every single day of the week, every single week of the year. But I can't plan on so much overtime that I'm pulling from other places every day. That's a problem for our staffing.
So
Right.
maybe, Commissioner, another way to turn that around would just be to say, if a visiting judge is in a courtroom that has been planned, then there would be no need for additional for that.
Well,
That's already-
I'm not necessarily worried about the two corrections officers in the first bullet point. I'm looking more at the probate court and their clerks. Because I did serve twice on that judicial review subcommittee, and unfortunately, my metaphors are military, that a judge is like an aircraft carrier. You don't buy an aircraft carrier, you buy like 40 ships. An aircraft carrier doesn't go out by itself. There's a lot of other ships with it. So back to the probate judge, or any judge, the judge has at least a clerk, and then there's other clerks, and then there's the deputies that have to help people get in and out, and yeah, so it's, when we hire a judge, that's why we said no the first time, and it took us a long time to get to yes the second time to add judges. Because judges last forever, or almost. And so so back then to the probate, that we added the probate judge a number of years ago, and now we're adding 2 clerk positions and converting 2 part-time to full-time. So it just seems like a lot of extra clerks all at once, so.
Yeah, I'd be happy to address that.
Cool.
If you look at our caseload, so the new filings that the court receives
Are-
every year, the new caseload.
No, you're a new person. Who, at least I
I'm
don't.
sorry.
Yeah,
I
no, that's okay.
apologize.
Because
I-
I was looking for our probate people and they weren't here, but you are here.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm Avery Rose, I'm the probate register at the court, and I'm sorry,
Nice to meet you.
yes, yeah, thank you. I should have started introducing myself, I apologize.
It's a tough crowd this morning.
It's all good. But hopefully I can help answer your question. If you look at our caseload over the last 10 years, the number of cases that the court is handling has increased by 50%. It's a pretty significant increase. And I think part of that's due to an aging population. We're handling more guardianships now. A number of factors. But if you look at our personnel levels, they've remained relatively stagnant. I think they've increased about 2% in that same period of time. I did an informal survey of surrounding comparable probate courts in the state of Michigan. I come from Allegan County. That's where I worked as a probate register for about 5 years. And I was very impressed by the amount of work that our staff handles across the street. After doing my informal review, and Plant Moran, when they conducted the review of our office, pointed this out too, but after doing my review, I found that our staff was handling 76% more new filings than the average probate court of our size in the state, which is significant. If you look at the caseload and the number of new filings, technically we should have about 22, 24 employees, and we have 14.4 right now. The proposed addition of like 2.5 people, if you convert the part-times to full and you add 2 full-times, will still put us at handling 50% more new filings than all these other courts. So we're by no means becoming fat. We're just trying to keep up. And I can tell you, for instance, today, we have someone on vacation, a scheduled vacation, someone on FMLA. Our front counter has 1 person. So as soon as this meeting is done, I'm going to be going across the street. I'm going to be helping answer questions at our front counter. That's how lean we are over there. So just to kind of put that in perspective, that's what this request is all about.
I guess just to final it, that in spite of the cattywampus process, you are recommending these after
Yes.
your review, and it wouldn't have gotten this far without that.
Correct.
So, all right, I'm good. Thank you,
Good.
Chair.
All right, Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's always nice to follow Commissioner Bolkowski because he does jog my memory every now and then. And I just want to follow up, Sheriff, the road patrol. It's pretty fluid in that staffing, and I just don't want us not have an open mind if it comes to a community contracting for more police work or spike in some of these crime activities that we don't have the ability to add to the road patrol. So I just want to throw that out. I don't think that that's a closed case, is it?
No,
As far-
no, sir.
Okay, all right,
No, sir.
all right, just checking.
Again, it really has to be based on matrix though.
Right.
And that is the one thing we put in place. And based on the matrix, we're at a good level right now. And that's why this is not on my request today. Our response times are at the national average, which is where we hope them to be. There are still some communities, particularly in the perimeter of our county, that we do still struggle with response times in. We do try to leverage partnerships we have, but obviously those are the least populated townships in our community. So those contracted relationships are more difficult there, more costly comparatively for those individuals. But we're doing what we can in terms of patrol staffing and patrol areas to do our best. So I'm not asking for patrol staff right now, but I'll go back to point number one. As traffic becomes more difficult to traverse in our community, that affects our response times. And as our population continues to increase, that will cause more demand. That will trigger me to come back and ask.
Thank you for that
Yeah.
clarification. When you get to be almost 66, you need that every now and then. Thank you.
I'll have to take your word for it.
Commissioner Womack?
Quick question for our administrator, and this won't really affect our budget in the long run, but I know the staffing will. But monies that's coming in from the state of Michigan for the backlog of cases in the county during the pandemic, you aware of that?
So we've had money from, no, I'm not aware of that.
Okay, because it was announced that there would be money coming in from the state for the backlog of cases. I don't know, maybe you've
We'll
heard
have
of
to
that?
look into that.
Maybe it's still floating around at the state because of the pandemic has affected a backlog of cases.
And it may be more of a circuit court thing.
Yeah.
We've kept up with our cases. We don't have any trial backlogs or anything like that in probate court. There are like murder
Okay.
trials pending,
Yeah.
things like that. That's a circuit court issue, I think,
Okay,
but I'm not aware of that either.
okay, thank you.
We'll look into it.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 3 from Human Resources. Al?
Yes. Let me make sure I get to the right item here. Okay. Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to transfer funding from the Administrator's 2022 General Fund budget and appropriate to the 2021-22 Health Fund budget for a full-time animal shelter technician, a part-time clerk typist 2, and to convert a part-time public health nurse position to full-time status. The Health Department is requesting the following additional positions: an animal shelter technician, $60,141, to improve the capacity to care for an increased population of cats due to a lower prevalence of spays and neuters during the COVID-19 pandemic. A part-time clerk typist 2, $21,957, to provide support for higher caseloads resulting from the addition of a nurse in the communicable disease unit. conversion of a part-time public health nurse to full-time status, $51,506, due to the expansion of immunization services to the South Clinic. It is also requested that $133,604 be transferred from the Administrator's 2022 General Fund budget and appropriate to the 2021-22 Health Fund budget. This request is contingent on the approval of these positions by the Legislative and Human Resources Committee and the full board adoption of the 2022 General Appropriation Act.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It will move by Commissioner Wooden, support by Commissioner Brevy. We'll take questions, comments, and discussion. Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the first sub-bullet, I do know that there's been a surge in the population of cats due to the stalling of spays and neuters during the pandemic. Are we expecting that now that such things are no longer being delayed, that there will be a decline? Or are we now at a new level to require the permanent addition that will also help in improving the capacity to care?
Good morning. We are continuing now and had started to do spay neuters again, but the stray cats that are out there are not spayed neutered, so that's a, growing issue until we can get them back in and get them spayed neutered. We have programs in place to, like we call catch and release, sort of, so we will take the cats in that are stray, we'll spay, neuter them, and we'll put them back out. So that they're not populating and all of that. So yes, we are doing spay neuters, but this is going to be something that's going to take quite a while to resolve.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. That brings us to item number 4 from Fiscal Services. Al?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appropriate up to an additional $1.2 million in 911 surcharge revenue to the 2021 Central Dispatch Collection Fund budget. The county levies a surcharge on telecommunication devices for 911 dispatch services, which is collected by telecommunications carriers. Kent County voters approved increasing the 911 surcharge from 0.45 per line to 1.15 per line, beginning on July 1, 2017. It was estimated that $8.1 million would be collected in 2021. It is expected that receipts will exceed projected revenue by up to $1.2 million for 2021. An additional appropriation of up to $1,200,000 is requested to provide adequate budget to allow distribution to the Kent County Dispatch Authority.
Is there a motion to approve?
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, support by Commissioner Brevy. We'll take questions, comments, and discussion. Yes, Commissioner Morgan.
So the way I'm reading this, it was just, the budget estimate was under what the receipts coming in, and didn't we go after some of the providers? This is, I guess, for our legal counsel on some of their fees. They weren't paying their 911 fees, and I'm thinking of Sprint and a few others.
We had one provider in particular that, prior to COVID, did finally come to the table and clean up the fact that they had not been turning over all of the 911 surcharges that they had collected. And it's my understanding now that the providers have reached a neutral point on that, where they are both collecting and remitting the surcharges as appropriate.
Okay.
Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Polkowski.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, related to all that, because it seems like that issue that Commissioner Morgan brings up has been an issue throughout, and so I don't know if who is the right staff person that could have the time to kind of dig into that, at least. I mean, again, no huge rush on it, but really, how the carriers assess this, and then making sure that once they collect it, then they actually pass it on to us. Because and just, I'd use the word goofy parts of the law where, like, again, they don't have to disclose the number of people they're assessing it to. It's like, just trust us. And I prefer not to. It's trust and verify. So just really curious on how that has moved forward. I know other jurisdictions in the country have sued the carriers, because it's like, oh, here's a $1.2 million that we kind of collected, and did we pass it on? It could be a lot of money. And again, it's coming out of taxpayers, or it's not a tax, it's a surcharge. And it needs to get to its right purpose. So, anywho, just on somebody's to-do pile for down the road. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing no other comments or questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. We have reports on the agenda. Al, did you have anything to add to the Finance Committee this morning?
I do not.
Okay, we'll go to public comment. Is there any public comment? Yes, please. State your name and address, please.
Good morning. I'm Lodies Warrenstein, resident of Kent County out at Cook Valley, portion of Porter. I have the honor of being the president of the Advocates for Senior. This month we are meeting committees and beginning of next month with the full committee with a request to village in Kent County. Levy voted on by the people for an 8-year. Have support and look forward to your continuing support for the senior millage. It distributes funds, and next year we would assume about 13 million to 32 to 34 agencies. Affects well over half of the senior population. We have a growing senior population in Kent County. The majority of whom want to stay at home. A lot of the millage goes to support services that do allow people to stay home. So we would appreciate your support for continuing and removing that millage. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment this morning for the Finance and Fiscal Resources Committee? All right, seeing none, I will close public comment. That will bring us to Commissioner Miscellaneous. Is there any Commissioner Miscellaneous this morning? Yes, Commissioner Morgan.
It's not really miscellaneous. I sit on the 911 Authority, and just to let everybody know that we have completed our tower, construction, and we're scheduled to go live here pretty soon, right? We are live, and so this is an 800 system. It's just dramatically improved our communication throughout the county, and perhaps at some point in time, we can just get a brief update from our sheriff on how it's affected her agency, and just have a few comments on where we'd like to go and how we'd like to administer these funds in the future. So, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Bukowski?
Yeah, I just want to quick second that motion, non-motion by Commissioner Morgan. Pontification, yes, that because like comments made about road patrol and when the sheriff's going to come back, I mean, comments made, promises made about the surcharge, this is what we're going to do, and here's how it's going to happen, and to see how this significant investment has occurred, and most importantly, not most importantly, importantly, like what is that future, because we know that the surcharge is going to become upside down with the costs at some point in the future. When is that being projected now that we have real live experience collecting the surcharge, and just to really get a good sense of what the next decade might bring? Yeah, for the future commissioners.
That's what I was gonna say.
Anyone else?
That's what I heard you say.
Yes, Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank Mr. Logan for being here today. I am a senior in training myself. So, as a person who is with the senior advocates, I definitely will be supporting, the millage. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we are adjourned. Our next meeting is December 7th at 8:30.